So if a parent were to ask me if their child with intellectual disabilities would be able to learn their native language, even though the majority of the input that they'd be receiving at school is English, I would say yes. I would first explain that children do have the capacity to learn two languages. This is true based on if there's an intellectual disability present or not. I would probably share some research on how individuals with intellectual disabilities that may be bilingual are often compared to individuals with intellectual disabilities that may be monolingual, or even neurotypical children that are monolingual and bilingual, and it still shows that those individuals who are bilingual with intellectual disabilities still have the same capacity to learn. Obviously, in childhood, the brain has more plasticity and allows for that language acquisition of more than one language, so I would just kind of share that information. I would explain that if the family feels as though having the child learn that native language is important to them, also for cultural reasons as well, I would explain that the input of that native language would have to be very rich, especially since the majority of their input would be English for like the most of their day. So I'd explain either like talking only at home in L1, or involving the child in activities like shared book reading in that L1. Just explaining and having that vocabulary input for that child will help build the foundation of that native language. I would also explain that, again, along with that misconception, a lot of people tend to think that when it comes to individuals with intellectual disabilities and language development, that it needs to be simplified and that the child should only be learning a language like the one that they would use in school, so English, and not to kind of like push away that native language. I would explain that you would actually be taking away that support system, because most of the time the child will use that first language, that native language, as a foundation for learning the second language. So that could help the acquisition for school of English. So again, I would probably explain it as like a house where you wouldn't want to take your supports away when you're still building your house. It's kind of the same thing when learning that second language. You wouldn't want to take away that L1, because that could actually do more damage and make it harder for that child to learn English for school.